Hey everyone, Week Review is here. It is White Rice Wednesday, which means time for my Survivor recap. Or my orange vanilla buff here in honor of National Walkout Day. So to recap on tonight's episode, the Malolo, the original Malolo members on the new Navidi tribe stayed strong last tribal, and Angela feels betrayed because her tribe was gunning for her, and it's not that much of a surprise because she was all getting buddy-buddy of Chris, so, I mean, Chris was the number one target, so if Chris sent to Ghost Island, of course they're gonna go after his one and only ally to kind of weaken him. Dominic and Wendell are kind of in a bad spot because they kind of made enemies of everyone in the tribe, but when you're on rock bottom, there's nowhere you can go but up. And Dominic does the bold move of telling Wendell that he has a real idol. And I just don't get it. What's with people telling other tribe members you have idols or advantages? I mean, it looks like Dominic and Wendell are in a pretty tight alliance for now. I don't think Wendell will tell anybody that Dominic has an idol. So I think he's safe. And Dominic actually finds out in his bag that he had been wielded the legacy advantage. So Dominic has a lot of power in the game right now with an idol and a legacy advantage in his pocket. And just so everybody, reminding of the legacy advantage rules, you can only use that when there are 13 people left in the game or 6 people left in the game. So the reward challenge was one of my favorite challenges. I call it water slaughter. They basically had to, 2 people race to get this buoy or ring, whatever you call it, and they just had to make it back to the pole. And it was pretty epic. I remember in the Millennials versus Gen X season, like, Probst almost got the wind knocked out of them. They're playing for peanut butter and jelly to take home, and what's interesting is that now usually is the immunity challenge, whoever wins, it gets to send someone Ghost Island, and they'll be immune from tribal council. Well, now it's at the reward challenge, so whoever they send to Ghost Island will be there for the next immunity challenge, so they won't be safe at tribal council. Navidi had a very early lead, and Navidi actually ended up winning the reward. They decided to go with what they did last time because there's a mix with Malolo, mixed Navidi. They decided to have them draw rocks as he goes to Ghost Island, and Kellen mentions how it's like her worst fear to go to Ghost Island, and I guess the Survivor gods heard her because Kellen was the one who drew I believe it's the white rock, and got sent to Ghost Island. So when Kellen gets to Ghost Island, she has to follow this fire, and she cracks open one of the urns, and she actually does find something this time. She has the option to play this game where she wagers an advantage for her next vote at tribal council. So I'm thinking the rules are, you can have an advantage, and if it says if you open one of the 2 boxes and it says you have an advantage, you get to keep your advantage in your vote. But if you get nothing in the box, that means you lose your vote. And Kellen decides not to play the game to keep her vote at the next tribal council. And Kellen got really personal, was talking about her experience and how she has to trust her gut. And if she hadn't trusted her gut, she wouldn't have gotten to where she is today. I gotta say, Kellen seems like a really strong person, and I'm starting to like Kellen. On the Navidi tribe, Dominic is sick of Chris. He wants him off his back, and I'm pretty much sick of Chris too. Like, his whole game is based upon the fact that he couldn't take Dominic's criticism. Like, everybody had to say that the move he made on day 1 was the best, but as soon as somebody says, I don't like what you did, and I was honest with him, he doesn't like that. Now his whole game's about that. Like, I cannot stand that about Survivor players. Chris wants to align with the 4 Malolos because Angela tells him how everybody went against him, so he wants to align with the Malolos. but Laurel and Donovan don't want to work with Chris. They find him too pushy and bossy, and they don't want Chris to have that power. So Laurel actually goes and talks to Dominic and says how she wants to work with him, and Dominic actually tells Laurel that he has a real idol, and she asked him, "Why didn't you tell me?" And he said, "You're not supposed to tell anybody you have an idol." I'm like, you're not supposed to tell anybody you had an idol. Yet, you told 2 people in this episode that you had an idol. So, I'm definitely looking forward to see where this alliance goes, because now Dominic can rework the game now that he has Laurel and Donovan on his alliance. I'm really happy that my 3 favorite players in the season so far, Donovan, Wendell, and Dominic, are on the same alliance. On the immunity challenge, they had to swim to this bamboo cage, and they had to dive in to get this crate, and they had to release this door and drag their crate through the ocean. I mean, that looks freaking difficult. They had to get it up a ramp, and then they had to throw this hook to get it on a peg, and I guess move the bottom toward them so it would make it easier to move the crate. They then had to unlock the crate and release these balls that they had to throw up in the air, and they had to be on a small perch. Before I forget, Chelsea sat out in the reward challenge, and Desiree sat out in the immunity challenge because you can't sit the same people out in back-to-back challenges. And it seemed like Malolo actually had a very early lead. I was nervous at first because they didn't actually talk about Malolo at all this whole episode. So I had a hunch they might go to tribal council, but it looks like, they have an epic lead. And they actually got 3 balls up on the ledge, so it looked like this is going to be a blowout. But Navidi actually comes from behind and actually wins the immunity challenge. And so now Malolo has to send somebody home, and Bradley wants to play like Boston Rob or Kim Spradlin, wants to try to, get things going and play the game like them. And Stephanie fears that if she goes home this early, that she's somehow failing her kids. I don't necessarily see that. I see, you're out there playing this game that most people can't do and most people wouldn't do. So just being out there, is saying something. And a lot of people want Bradley gone because they say that he complains a lot. And he did complain, but I mean, you're out there on an island. I mean, he complained, but I don't see it as like annoying complaining, you know what I mean? And they were talking about the possibility if somebody has an idol on the Malolo tribe. So they want to say that they're going for the girls, but they're actually going to go for one of the guys. So it looks like Michael or Brendan are in trouble, but Michael did find an idol the last episode, and he wants to be able to play it. Brendan actually brings up a good point, saying that he wants to tell Steph and Jenna, because if they go and play this idol tribal council, it's going to make them look bad. And it is true, because if the idol does work and one of the original Navidi goes home, Steph and Jenna aren't going to side with Michael and Brendan because they're going to be on the out, so how can they trust them? So then Michael and Brendan would be on the bottom then. Michael wants to get rid of Bradley for the same reasons that I mentioned earlier. And Bradley wants to get rid of Brendan because he sees him as this like annoying father figure or coach that just gives bad advice. So they're gunning for each other. At tribal council, like I suspected, Michael and Brendan were definitely gunning for Bradley, saying that Sebastian and Chelsea are on the bottom and they should side with them. But it's interesting because if Chelsea and Sebastian were to suddenly go with the original Malolos, they're going to be on the bottom for that tribe. They'll maybe give them like one or two tribal councils to make him feel safe, then they're going to vote him off. I mean, they just need them right now for numbers to try to get Bradley off. And they're trying to argue that Bradley is the dominant one in that alliance, and it does appear that so that Bradley's calling the shots, it seems, for this episode. That's just how the edit's going. And Michael then decides to bring his idol out at tribal council and says that he can actually, with his idol, he can actually save two people, because James in Survivor China actually had two idols. So, and made me think, because just because he says, oh, look, I have an idol, doesn't mean that he's going to actually play the idol. And it also made me think, because he said that he actually pulled out the paper, so, you know, they would know that it's a real idol. But he said, no, I'm not going to read the whole thing. And then he says, oh, this could actually save two people. So right then and there, I knew he was lying about it, because he would have read it right from the paper if he was telling the truth. So I think that was a little flaw in Michael's plan, but I definitely think he had a good plan, because now they're going to scramble and maybe try to vote one of them, their own, off, whereas Michael tells them, oh, you know, it's, this idol could save two people, so then they think, oh, we're not going to get rid of Michael or Brendan then. And Michael does play the idol, and sure enough, it only could save one person. So I spotted Michael's bullshit a mile away. And he actually plays it for Stephanie, because I suspect that Stephanie's going to be the one sent home. And it actually came down a tie between Bradley and Brendan, and it actually was Brendan that got sent home. So I think Michael had a good thought process, but it just had that flaw there. They obviously didn't believe him, because he didn't read it from the paper. I mean, I didn't believe him. And he just gave it to Stephanie. So he played the idol wrong. So the idol was useless then. I was literally sitting on the edge of my seat that whole tribal council. Like, I seriously thought Bradley would be going home. I was like freaking out, because I'm in like so many Survivor drafts, and Gonzalez was the first one out. So I'm like, I'm really suffering in my drafts right now. And I'm like, oh, please don't tell me I picked two pre-mergers. So I'm glad Bradley's safe. And now the Malolos are on the bottom, especially Michael is on the bottom now, because now it's idolist. But that means there's an idol in play back at Malolo. On next week's episode shows that Jenna and Sebastian are getting flirty together. And Sebastian says, you know, if she remains flirty with me, I'll keep her in the game. So I'm like, oh, I hope this isn't another, like, showmance where they're a couple and then they end up voting one of them off. Like, that's always what happened. We've seen that happen, like, every season so far since Millennials versus Gen X in some shape or form. And we see that Donovan was originally, going to be in Dominic's alliance, but apparently he connects with Chris, so Chris is trying to work his magic to bring people over on his tribe. And again, I think Chris is only using them for numbers. I don't think he really likes Donovan or Laurel. He wants them for numbers so he can be on top. So hopefully Donovan sticks with Dominic. Because I think Dominic, of course, needs numbers, but I definitely think he's sincere, wants to work with them and everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's Survivor. If you guys want to check out Survivor, it is on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on CBS. Till next time, stay regal.